I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning on a kind of a soggy morning. It'd be interesting if we had this kind of weather on the 8th when the eclipse is supposed to come through. Hopefully we don't. Okay, first on the agenda is Bowen Center annual report update.
Good morning, everybody. Like you said, a soggy morning. Doesn't certainly damper our excitement for being here. My name is Dr. Rob Ryan. I'm the president and CEO of Bowen Center, and I have been for around 18 months. I came to the Bowen Center back in 2004 as an intern and figured I'd do it for a year, and then I'd go back to where home was. And 20 years later, the mission, the people, and the people we serve has kept me here. It really has changed my life. And that dedication to the people we serve and the people who do that work is something that we're certainly proud of. We wanted to come today and really share with you some stories. For over 60 years, Whitley County has been one of our core counties that has financially supported us. The community has supported us with efforts, volunteer, and work. And we figured that instead of just coming once per year in front of the commissioners, we wanted to be available to you to answer questions. And again, to put some names and stories to the work that we do. I was a little surprised back in January when Mista sent me a link to one of your meetings. And she said, hey, take a look at the end of this meeting. And during the commissioner's report, there was a question that says, hey, are we still considering switching from Bowen Center to another community health center? And when I sort of let that process a little bit, I just started thinking to myself, well, what would I say to that if asked, you want to stop a 60-year successful relationship? What are we going to do about that? Initially, I started thinking, we need to come to you. We're going to tell you all the reasons that you shouldn't choose someone else because of all the things you're going to lose and the things that would stop. And the more that I thought about it, the more that I thought about my 20 years at the Bowen Center, I started thinking, you know, this is more about what Bowen Center would lose. Whitley County is our identity. We were started by 6 community members back in 1960 who decided that we need to do better to treat the people who are struggling with mental illness and to allow them to live independent lives in the community. And 2 of those people were from Whitley County. And this idea that somehow we could just shear one of those individual counties off and just continue on as if nothing happened was something that said, I gotta come here and make sure you all know how important you are to us and the funds that you give us, and that the people, the citizens here of Whitley County are important to us. And if we have failed in communicating that, how important you are, the stories, we're here just to show you that our commitment moving forward is to make sure you have that. I have no doubt that you get stopped on the street and asked, what are you doing spending money on those streets? Why don't you spend more money on schools? Why don't you spend money on this, that, and the other? And everyone has their own opinion. And if our name comes up, I want you to make sure that you have the stories to say, let me share with you where that money goes. Let me talk to you about the lives that were changed. And like I said, if today can be the beginning of that, and that's something we can improve, we're excited about it. I did bring 2 other employees with us, so that you'll know both of them if you have lived here in any time here in the county. But I just wanted to start with one of those such stories that I could give you. We made an investment, an $8 million investment actually, in building a new building out here on US 30. And the reason that Whitley County went first has a lot to do with us being a not-for-profit. Remember, we had said that we have those 5 core counties. Around 5 years ago, we made a commitment to shift from just focusing on the head, right, mental health, into total health, or something we call integrated care. The idea is that the person's mind and body are connected, and we have to find some way to help people to have one place to go. And the idea that somehow our bodies are split from our heads makes total sense to us, right, individually. But for funding and for how the state has set us up, there was always a sense of we focus on this, and Parkview Whitley across the street takes care of the rest of the body. And the question ended up being is well, what are we going to do about this total healthcare. And when we sat down and started looking at the data, it started becoming clear to us that even 60 years ago, I think the purpose of the Bowen Center, the purpose of community mental health centers across the state was to always treat the whole body, but like I said, for mostly funding reasons, it's just focused on the head. So integrative care is having multidisciplinary teams working together, physical health, mental health, pharmacy, dentistry, optometry, all working together for the betterment of people who need it the most, and those are people struggling with mental illness. Research shows us that basically if you have a serious mental illness by the time you're 22, 23, you're going to die around 20 to 25 years younger than the general population. So here in Whitley County, roughly you're speaking for women, it's just about 80 years of age, around 77 years for men. So you just think about that. You do that math, but then you think about a loved one of yours, essentially an illness would steal 20 to 25 years of their life. Again, I told you I was here with stories, right? So I'll end with this. I'm going to tell you a story the first time through of what would have happened to a person for the first 60 years of our relationship with you. We're proud of that, but I'm going to then retell that same story with integrative care in a shorter version so you can wrap your head around what is this integrative care and what are we trying to do. So here's that little story. There's a story about Troy, and while the individual story is not just one person, it's a mixture of several different individuals, it really does illustrate what we're trying to do differently. So I will basically share this and then I'll pass it over to Tess and she can talk more about some initiatives. But I just thought this was important to share. Troy started out life like most of us. He went to school, he made friends and grew. Around 18, his friends and family started to notice something change in Troy. He became more distant, talked about conspiracy theories, and stopped being motivated to care for himself. By 24, Troy had 2 stays in county jail and been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, which is a pretty serious mental health disorder. Over the next 10 years, his behavior strained his relationships with his family and his community. By the time he turned 40, Troy had been referred to Bowen Center services many times, but never followed through. Late one Saturday evening, a sheriff's deputy called our crisis receiving and stabilization services, which you're going to hear about next, asking if there's anything Bowen Center can do. They were told, just bring him, no conditions, just bring him. Over the next several months, Troy would drop in and out of our services. After developing trust in our services, one day he asked his psychiatrist if they knew how to get him off the streets. This began a journey through Bowen Center's transitional living services. Troy initially stayed in one of our 24-hour homes. He was quiet and standoffish, but it didn't take long before other patients and staff got to see the real Troy. He was nervous to make friends and trust staff due to years of abandonment and him feeling like people would always let him down. Troy graduated to Bowen Center's semi-independent living home, and he was able to live a much freer life. Here, Troy flourished. He began working on his overall health, and during his stay, he went to get medication help for hepatitis C, chronic high blood pressure, and improving his oral health. At age 51, during a routine health checkup, a Bowen Center doctor came across a lump in Troy's neck. After referring Troy to a specialist, it was found to be cancerous. Staff were devastated. Troy was surprisingly upbeat, though. He would tell anyone that would listen that the last 5 years of his life were the best of his life, and that if it was his time, he was ready. Unfortunately, Troy's funeral was small and made up mostly of friends he had made at Bowen Center and Bowen Center staff. One distant relative was found who was able to attend, but beyond them, Bowen Center was Troy's family. One of the last things Troy said, and this will always stay with me, and this is certainly, this part is absolutely true, is Troy said that he wished he'd found Bowen Center earlier, and that if he had, maybe his life would have turned out differently. Now, if I came and told you that story that represented our first 60 years, I'd say, I'm so glad that Troy finally made the choice to come work with us. That integrative care is to make a difference in persons' lives earlier. And the short version I talk about here is to listen to the ages where we interact with them and the difference of that outcome. Troy started life like most of us. He went to school, made friends, and grew. In 4th grade, his teacher noticed that Troy struggled making friends. She referred him to Bowen Center's new school program called Head to Toe that connects a licensed therapist to children in school via telehealth. Around 16, Troy's psychiatrist diagnosed him with schizoaffective disorder. After graduating high school, Troy entered an internship program to become a welder. Troy's Bowen Center skills coach came with him to orientation, and they spent the next few days creating plan of success. Over the next 10 years, Troy got his welding certificate and found a woman that he moved in with to spend the rest of his life. By the time he turned 40, Troy wanted to change his life. He talked to his therapist about wanting to give back. Troy applied to become a peer support and was excited the day he became a Bowen Center employee. At 41, in an annual checkup, a lump was found in Troy's neck. After a specialty follow-up, a plan to treat his cancer was developed. After a year of treatment, Troy was declared cancer-free. Today, Troy's 53 years old. He's the lead of our peer support team, and he's excited that he's going to be a grandfather. That's the difference our next 60 years is going to give to Whitney County citizens. This idea that says they deserve those extra 25 years. And we know what it takes in order to do that. It's a coordinated approach that intervenes earlier in people's lives and allows them to navigate the difficult healthcare system with a partner. So up next, I brought Tess Ottenwaller. She is our Vice President of Intensive Services. If you want to talk about something that we're working on here specifically for Whitney County.
Hi, as Rob said, so I'm Tess Ottenwaller, our Vice President of Intensive Services. So that means I get to work very closely with our inpatient hospital, our crisis services, and our transitional living. So some group homes, apartment complexes that we have. And today I'm really excited to talk to you about our crisis service expansion. Now, this is new for us, and it really is an exciting endeavor to meet community needs, meet the needs of our friends and family. And I think the bottom line is we've heard what's needed and we're making the steps to continue to meet the needs. So we've been partnering with DMHA and 988 for this expansion. And when we think about crisis services, I want you to think of three things. So the first component is a place to call. So that's 988 or Bowen Center Direct. The second piece of crisis services is someone to respond. That's mobile crisis teams. So those are teams that go directly out in the community, to the workplace, wherever the crisis is happening, to help in the moment. And then the last place is a safe place to go. So that's our crisis receiving and stabilization services. And I know that's kind of a mouthful, but there you go. So first, I want to talk to you about crisis receiving and stabilization. This is that safe place to go. MISTA has done an excellent job at helping us design our new building to ensure that anybody who's experiencing a crisis is able to receive immediate access to care. Her team will assess, they'll stabilize the situation, and then they'll connect to that next level of care, whatever that might be. It could be that somebody needs to receive services in the office that day, that hour, the next 5 minutes. It could mean that they just need connected to other community resources, such as housing, food insecurity. It could also mean that that person needs that next level of care, like inpatient hospitalization. If that's the case, we're able to warmly hand off 15 minutes down the road to our Pearson inpatient hospital facility. We have programming at the inpatient hospital 24/7. MISTA can take any walk-in crisis during typical business hours. If a crisis is happening beyond typical business hours, late in the evening, holiday, a weekend, we have expanded crisis receiving and stabilization services at our inpatient facility in that same building. Again, just 15 minutes down the road to help anybody. That service is available today, now. We've been running it for the last few months. I know that we talked to the commissioners about a month ago. And since that time, we've seen over 50 different stays for crisis receiving and stabilization. That means we were able to de-escalate a crisis in the moment. And most times, we were able to not have an inpatient hospitalization stay. That can be traumatic. So being able to decrease that and meet the need immediately and get someone back home is extremely effective. So the next expansion service I want to talk to you about is our mobile crisis teams. So this is someone safe to respond. It's in development. And by in development, I mean we're currently hiring, training, and getting staff ready so they can respond effectively. I'm excited about this because not only does it enhance some of our current community-based services that we're doing, it also is going to open up a brand new workforce for us, and that is for peer specialists. Now, if you're not sure what a peer specialist is, this is an individual who has lived experience in the behavioral health arena, either by way of their own mental illness, substance use disorder, or navigating that with someone that they love. This is not a clinical role. This is a supportive role. It promotes safety. It really helps individuals in crisis connect to whatever they need to. And they've experienced personally their own challenges in navigating healthcare systems, behavioral healthcare systems, some of the community resources. Research has shown that it is extremely important for this role to help, especially in a crisis, connect someone to safety and then also continue to keep them engaged in services so we can prevent any future crises. So the bottom line is we really are transforming the way that we are providing crisis care. By the end of the year, we will have 2-person mobile response teams right here in Whitley County providing that service. I'm hoping I'm back here before the end of the year to tell you that we're ready to go. But we will absolutely have this by the end of the year. We're running 24/7. As we continue to expand these crisis services, we're going to do some additional things. And one, that is decrease the amount of unnecessary hospitalizations. That's decrease the overuse of some community resources like law enforcement when their presence may not be what's needed in a behavioral health crisis. And then most importantly, we're going to save lives. So before I end, I just want to let you know that collaboration is key. So if you see a need in the community, if you see something you'd like us to do, or maybe you're not sure about, reach out. If you have 15 minutes, come over and see how we provide services. Come see me and Kirsten at our inpatient facility, at our crisis receiving and stabilization expansion out there. We are currently remodeling our building, so in a few months we will have an open house for our remodeled crisis receiving and stabilization program. But I can't tell you enough how amazing it is to see what we do up close and personal. You can talk to patients, you can talk to our staff. We are transforming lives and helping people live longer lives, and I am so privileged that I get to work so closely with some of our most intensive services. So like I said, 15 minutes a day, whatever, we'll take anything. Come see Mista, come see me. I'd love to continue talking about what we're doing. I'm gonna kick it over to Mista. That's not our annual reports here. I'll just go between passing them. So I'm Mista Lauber. I'm the director here in Whitley County. I've been with Bowen for around 13 years combined. I started back in 2008 and left for a few years and then came back. This time I've been here 12 years. But as Rob said, we're bringing the stories today just so you have a better idea of what we do at Bowen Center. When you have time, please read these stories. It's what we do every day. These are a few quick snapshots, but we are in the schools, we're in the community, we're responding to crisis. Now with our new building, we have our physical health component, and so there's a story in here with Dr. Greer at the top on this blue page, and it really shows you how integrative care works and how they can come in for a physical health appointment, and the doctor can identify in the moment that there might be a mental health need, and we're all right there in one building and ready to serve that patient however we can. So as I said, please take some time to read those stories and show how we're reuniting families and how we're treating the whole person. You are probably interested most in the last page, which is the financial report. And if you're not, that's great too. But I want to talk to you a little bit about our financials and just show you how the money that you give us impacts the community. So as you'll see, the Whitley County funding, what we received from you, $240,000. And then we were able to take that and help individuals with co-pays or just individuals who can't pay at all. And we were able to give almost $300,000 back in free care for Whitley County patients. We served almost 3,000 patients, which is about 8% of our community here in Whitley County. And 50% of those patients that we've served have Medicaid insurance. And so I think that that's important for you to hear, just because those are typically the patients that have the most to need, and that is our target population. Did I touch something? Oh,
Sorry.
come on, Thor. But anyway, the last thing that I want to touch on quickly is the amount of patient visits. So as you'll see, there was the bottom right side of the page, over 21,000 patient visits, which means out of those close to 3,000 patients that we served, they revisited us on an average of 8 times. And so I just think that that paints a clear picture of they came once and they continue to come to be served. So I think it speaks to the quality of our services that we provide here in Whitley County. And before I ask for questions, I wanted Rob to introduce our board members.
So I mentioned earlier that we've had a partnership for 50 years. We appreciate those original board members, but we currently have 3 board members. I mentioned to you that we have 5 core counties. They are Marshall County, Kosciuszko, Whitley, Wabash, and Huntington. And the way that the state asks us to form our board is that each of those core counties that are assigned to us receive 3 board members. And so those 3 board members for you here is Eric Helfrich, who's a retired CFO for Group Deco. The other is Deb Bryce. She's a nurse practitioner at Parkview Whitley. And the third one is, probably have never heard of him, Jim Fleck. He's lived 5 lives, I swear. Lawyer, judge, mayor. And the reason that I bring those up is that as new openings come up, is we want to be able to reach out and say, hey, do you have input? We want to make sure that if we're creating our strategic plan over the next 5 years, what do you think? I just love what Tess said, is let us know, is there things that we're missing? So when we ask the questions here today, what I would add to that is what more do you need to know? You may not have the answer yet, but what can we bring back? You know the questions you would ask the community. You have the questions yourselves. Why is it the way that it is? We can get you those answers if we don't know them today. So I would just say we certainly open up questions. You may have many, you may have none. But either way, like I said, I would just love to moving forward, not just show up once a year in front of the commissioners and say, we got to build. Instead, really be a partner as we've experienced our relationship here in the county. So, like Mrs. said, any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Dr. Ryan. Where are you based out of? Where's your office, or where do you guys?
Yeah, so our corporate office is in Warsaw, West Jefferson, just off Center Street there. And we have been there in Warsaw since the beginning.
Okay, and what 5 counties again? I got
So I'll
Marshall,
go
King County,
along 30, so Marshall, Kosciuszko, Whitley, drop down south, Wabash, Huntington. We actually started out with 4 counties. Again, historically speaking, they assigned counties based on population. And at the beginning, the 4 that we were given weren't quite enough to meet the threshold of 275,000 Hoosiers back in 1960. So they added Huntington to that. So I always tease that our first name was not named after a 2-term governor. It was 4 County Community Mental Health Center. And the ad wizards came up with an even better name when we added Huntington. They said, let's call ourselves 5 County. I'm just glad they didn't just keep adding on to that.
kind of like the Big Ten.
That's right, the Big Ten, exactly. I think that what I would tell you about Bowen is that I first started over there in Marshall County. And I'll tell you that Doc Bowen certainly looms large there, Rochester, Fulton County, but also there in Marshall County. And having met him over the years and met with his family, something that stands out that I think that I'm most proud of being associated with him is he did a lot of things in life that, you know, maybe aspire to. He was head of Health and Human Services in the Reagan administration during the AIDS crisis. And when asked, you know, what's your proudest title, he said country doctor. And I would tell you that we take that seriously. If you think about those 5 counties that you know, I shared, that's a country doctor model. And I think that the mobile crisis team is, when we get a call at 3 in the morning, there was no one else to go. He would go. And getting back to those roots, I think is something that we're proud of. You know, again, to wear that name proudly and say, you know, we're country doctors who go out and meet people where they're at, not just you have to come to us.
Well, your facility here looks very nice,
Thank you.
very nice addition. That's for sure. This doesn't have this isn't a question about your programs, it's a question about your old facility.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the facility over there?
Yeah, so we have put it up for sale. I will tell you that our priority, this kind of goes back to that sense of being a good corporate citizen. Our priority would love to see something that enhances the community, not to disparage, you know, private for-profit businesses, but we'd love for people's sort of memory of, oh, that's the place you go to get help, be another place to go get help. So it is for sale. We've had multiple interested parties, but sort of like everything, you know, the idea of it and being able to purchase it, usually 2 different things. We have talked internally that if it goes much longer, is looking out to see is there a not-for-profit that could use that space while we wait. Just again, I don't want something sitting there in your courthouse square empty, not being used when it served us well. It's a great building. We've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into that area. So we've been talking internally that says, you know what, if we don't get a bite here, what agency could live here while we're still trying to sell it? So.
I have a question. On your patients served, are these numbers based just on what the county?
Those are. We tried to, this is something we tried to do better, is these dollars come specifically from me. We want to give you data specifically. The commissioners get a report that the commissioners across the state have asked for. In my mind, we've tried to paint a picture of here's what's happening in Whitney County. The overall finances are from the whole center, but all on the side and bottom is focused on Whitney County, so that you can tell that picture. I mean, when you hear like 1 in 10 people, essentially, you know, as we sit here, all of us just up front here, one of us will have come to see us this year, not in our lifetime, but one of us will have come to see us and stand there.
Well, I toured your facility.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised how complete the services were. I mean, you can do full medical care. I was that really surprised myself. That was really nice.
And we're excited whether or not it's here first, but to be able to give people dental care, optometry, pharmacy are all important to us. I would just keep this story is that in the area that Tess works, in the area of care, if you want to return people to work, you want to return people to live their full lives, to be a contributing member of society. I was sitting there and one of the cool things of my job was doing a little arts and crafts with these ladies. And I was sitting there and they were talking about the progress they were making and they were smiling and happy. And I noticed this is not just physical health care. Of the 3 ladies in their 40s, 2 of the 3 had fewer than 3 upper teeth. And I just sat there thinking to myself, they lived with us and worked with us. We probably helped them decide what to eat, when to brush your teeth. How does someone end up with 3 upper teeth? And so when I investigated into that, when you have Medicaid, it's very difficult to find preventive dental care. So you get a toothache, you wait as long as you can. No dentist takes Medicare. You go, or Medicaid, you go to the emergency room, they go, we don't do dental care. Here's a painkiller. It becomes abscess, they come back, they go, oh, we can do something with that now, and it's cold. And so think about that. You are 35, 40, you want to get a job. Imagine how confident you would be sitting in an interview with me. Imagine you're in the grocery store and you see someone that maybe you're interested in, and you think, oh, kind of cute, maybe I want to talk to him. You're not going to go up to that person and talk to them. So this whole idea about total health is about the entire person, and that if we're going to return people to have them contribute to society, it's that total piece. It's not just, we'll help you feel better. It's will help you look better, which will help you feel better, and live longer lives. So we're excited about it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we're good. We're rolling.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, can you guys hear back there? Yep. Okay, because I knew in our last meeting, we had a little problem.
Oh, you know, you could move up to the front row.
Yeah.
That way everybody can see your head bobbing.
Okay. Nathan, you're up next. Redevelopment Commission Annual Report.
Good morning. So this is the first year that the annual report of the Redevelopment Commission has to be presented to the fiscal body. I think we did it last year in anticipation of the code change, but that went into effect as of January 1st, 2024. So the Redevelopment Commission reviewed the annual report. You should have all had copies in your packet. Hopefully you had a chance to look at that. And they signed off on it, so now we're presenting it to you guys. After it's presented to you, it will be filed with the DLCF. Also been filed with the commissioners. So included in the annual report is those things up there, so members, employees, and importantly, the expenditures, grants, balances, and revenues received per TIF district and as a commission as a whole. So I'll just kind of highlight some things. Next one. Major accomplishments for the Redevelopment Commission in 2023. Had a handful of things there. Infrastructure projects primarily dealt with area of 100 South and 300 East. So founded by Lincoln Point on the east, US 30 on the south, 100 South on the north. And Triad and Cellrite is in that area. So the 26-acre site in there that was earmarked by or bought by Rogers Market for development, the 100 South Business Park site. In order to serve that, it needed sanitary sewer. It also had some drainage issues. So we've been working with city on the sanitary sewer and drainage work with them on drainage. Another large development project, significant, that was a contribution to the Whitley County Jail project. There were some other projects, but those were again the biggest ones. Going on, revenues, just a quick breakdown. All of these things are in here. Copy of the annual report here as well. Quick breakdown of the various sources of revenue. Union TIF was $3.8, almost $3.9 million in 2023. Rail Connect was just over 20,000. Larwell, first year had any significant increment, so just over $2,000. It was established in 2019, so it's still a baby. And Iotron Union, which is actually a subset of Union, is kind of designated separately because its funds get back to paying this fund specific to Iotron and Nexotera. Additionally, interest, importantly, and the treasurer's been awesome in 2023, and interest rates were also kind. So interest was quite a bit higher than previous years at $166,000. For, let's see, other things notably, the Redevelopment Commission sold the last 2 lots that it retained in Rural Connect Park for $269,000. Those went to Ambassador Enterprises, the parent company of American Landmaster. So they're looking at an expansion from their production facility, and they're moving their R&D and some offices to Rural Connect Park. Kind of a long-term plan, but they bought the land in anticipation of that. They also want to do a test track on a large piece of ground that's there as well. So it was pretty optimal for them to be pretty close to where they are and just be able to move. So grand total revenues among all different sources was $4.6 million. Going on to the expenses, let's see here. The largest ones were for contracted services, and I'll just kind of run through some of these. API construction, that's related to the sanitary sewer project. State Utility provided an annual report like they do to the, well, you guys. They also provide one to the Redevelopment Commission. Burtot and Culvert Asphalt, those were payments related to a project for a couple different projects at Gateway Industrial Park and then Impact CNC as an incentive towards them. Rogers Market, that again is related to the development of their business park site south. And then Willie County Engineer and Drainage, that's the drainage project. Training grants, and on the other table there pulled out are a list of the grants and loans made. All of these are some sort of training. The first three are training grants towards businesses, and the fourth one is towards training vocational program for Whitco. Smith Green also has a similar program that has been committed, but they didn't have the expenditures yet or request in 2023. They will in 2024. So all of those come out to be about $265,000, and that's, I will say, the training grant program is something that's been a very large success rather than having businesses come in for tax abatements. Training grants are being used to move that in order to provide training to their employees that if they leave, presumably, even if it's not an exact replicable sort of situation, they can't take those skills directly. At least they've been trained and maybe know computers more than they did before that. So it helps the employees, helps their citizens as much as anything, as well as reduces costs for a new business or expanding business. So one thing that I'm glad that the Redevelopment Commission is able to do. Capital improvement projects, I think the drainage, the $4 million towards the jail project as well. Under TIF distribution, why it's listed under TIF distribution, I can't remember, but it's just one of the categories, is Union Township trustee, and that is an annual payment towards fire protection in Union Township, being the Union TIF district is completely within Union Township, helps to offset some other capital expenses. And as of 2023, it can also be used to start to offset some operational expenses if they wish. Expenses for tax revenue bond, just under $700,000. Those are just three large bonds that we've got. Year-end balances then, you can see there total of the TIF increment balances were just under $11 million, 10.934. Most of that is Union TIF, of course. Bond proceeds in 2023, we still have some bond proceeds from the Series A bond of $1,451,000. That is being drawn down now towards the sewer project and drainage project. That was kind of a decision made earlier this year, so those funds will start to swap out. And then our non-incremental funds is just a placeholder there in case the Redevelopment Commission had revenue stream outside of TIF. You'll see the fund or something like that given to them to be used. So going through each individual TIF district real quick. This is the Union TIF. It's all within Union Township. It is from 800 East to 200, but would be 200 East, primarily along US 30. The tables, you've got three bonds. Soterra is that designated taxpayer from Iotron and Soterra. So their funds go back into paying that bond off. Redevelopment Bond 1 and 2. These are actually shared with Rail Connect Park as well, which you see in the next slide. And then last table is the revenues and expenses specific to Union. This is Rail Connect, just off 600 East south of the railroad, and north of 300. Again, the bonds are identical to union, except Sotera isn't here. Sotera's in union. Revenues were 228,000. Expenses, the accounting of the expenses, again, because they're shared between the two different TIPS districts, it's the same as union, and the year-end balance was 1.8 million. And then finally, Larwell, notably Larwell is an incorporated town, of course, but they do not have their own redevelopment commission district or redevelopment commission. And so it falls back on the county to provide them, and we've worked with them and establishing this back in 2019, takes in the core of greater downtown Larwell, as well as development potential areas on the north side of US 30 and west of Larwell as well. Being established in 2019, it hasn't had very much time to accumulate. Red Star, though, has done some big expansions, and in 2023 and this year, they have a very large expansion that will start to show up in increment in a couple years. But in 2023, their revenues were just over $2,000, giving them an actual balance. So, and then the cover photo there is from the American Land Minister. So that's just a high-level summary of the annual report. Any questions for me, or we've got a couple members of the Redevelopment Commission here as well?
If anybody gets a chance, you ought to go to Larwell and look at Red Star. That's amazing what they're doing. That is a huge building for Larwell. So if you get a chance, drive by there and take a look at it. Stop in and say hi. Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, planning strategies, Dale and Zach.
Well, yeah, so obviously what's on the agenda is an agreement renewal request that commissioners did approve, continuing the sand strategies contract for another 6 months. Obviously, this body is paying for the used ARP funds last time. We hope to continue with that. And again, remind you that it's, we've got a 30-day out clause. But I think when you hear the update and some of the work that Sand Strategies is doing today, you're going to understand why the task force is greatly in favor of continuing with the service contract. But first, I'd like Zach just to kind of give you an update on quite a few things.
Morning, Council. Thanks for having me this morning. Just want to give a brief update on several of the grants that we've been going after, as well as an update on a lot of the conversations we've been having with providers, as well as our other stakeholders in the community. First, I know I've talked to you guys about the NLC program. That's the state's Next Level Connections program, round 4, that we were first engaging providers on. We were hopeful that we were going to have 2 providers there and submit for that, but then I think many of you are aware, we just end up having 1 provider submit an application for NLC round 4. We're currently through the competitive application phase, which ends April 15th for that program. That's where individual providers can look at our 1 applicant's application they put in and see if they can provide that service there in that location for a cheaper cost and serve that area. The award of that NLC 4 grant is June 5th. And that butts up right into around the same time as I've talked about things several times with you guys with the BEAD program. That's the $868 billion, sorry, that's coming to the state of Indiana for broadband. Before I get to the BEAD program, I also want to recognize the ISP program, the Indiana Connectivity Program, that we've also pitched very hard here. That allows individual residents and businesses to apply for line extensions, fiber line extensions to their home or business. We just recently hosted an event at the Community Foundation with Surf Internet just about a week and a half ago on March 20th. We were successful in submitting 44 applications with residents. So we opened up the Community Foundation one evening and Surf Internet ourselves. Got 44 people to successfully sign up for that program, which we'll know later in the year which of those 44 got awarded line extensions to their house. So I do want to thank Surf for their willingness to host that event for us. It's a lot of these different grant programs are a little extraneous to apply for, especially for individual residents. So they were great in walking through folks with that program to ultimately leverage it. And then going back to the BEAD program, currently right now we're in the BEAD challenge process, which essentially allows us to determine what are going to be the eligible addresses for the BEAD program. And over the past couple of weeks, fielded a lot of calls from other providers in the area. The Indiana Broadband Office also reached out to us with some concerns that we have. There's really one bad actor that we have, but there's three within the Northeast region that are blanketing the whole county, saying that they serve the whole, really the whole Northeast region with fixed wireless. And that's just not the case. And so that's what this challenge process allows us to do, is essentially to call out those providers and individual residents and business stuff to say, hey, this is not actually the service here, and they have to submit some documentation that proves that. And that is a very hard process sometimes to walk through. They have to do multiple speed tests, as well as submit their bill to prove whether or not they have that service there or not. So part of these ongoing conversations we've had, and give you an example, in the state of Kansas, one of these providers actually is blocking the entire appropriation for the BEAD funding. So as of right now, the state of Kansas is literally not going to see a single dollar of their allotment of the BEAD program. So through these conversations in the Indiana Broadband Office and a couple of providers, there's 11 counties up here in the Northeast region that we're going to be joining on securing a vendor who actually is able to do an analysis that is eligible for a challenge. And so what this does, essentially, it's a speed test that goes on these towers to confirm whether or not these fixed wireless providers are actually providing services to these homes or businesses. Costs about $25,000 to do this. Ultimately, this is a problem we're having in multiple counties, and so multiple economic development corporations and local units of government, and then even just some private folks like myself are willing to invest in this this vendor to essentially reclaim these addresses. I do want to thank Dale and Economic Development Corporation here for investing in this. Quite a few other EDCs in the region are also investing in this, so we can ultimately try to reclaim those addresses here by April 17th. And then ultimately what we will do as far as this challenge process is we have to submit the data that we collect from this to the state to reclaim those addresses. So the Commissioner's Office have their official permissible challenger. So what we will do is once they do this analysis of reclaiming these addresses, we'll be able to get that data from them, and then between Dale, myself, and the Commissioner's Office, we'll submit that data down to the state to ultimately hopefully reclaim those addresses, and then be able to ultimately be able to leverage the most amount of funding out of that $868 million that was awarded. We can expect that time to be sometime shortly after Labor Day, once we know what we would be awarded from June 5th from the NLC program. So also what will happen is whatever we're awarded from NLC round 4, they'll take those addresses off the eligibility for B, because ultimately they're going to plan to serve that through the NLC program. So sometime in, I said, shortly after Labor Day, or sorry, Memorial Day, is when we'll know essentially what's going to be eligible for BEAD. And then two last things I also wanted to hit on too. I know we've had Comcast that came in here, I think our last council meeting, or maybe the previous meeting. They weren't able to be here today, but they did want me to give you an update. Just based on the BEAD timing, they should be able to have us a comprehensive cost on what it would take for Comcast to build out Whitley County, and that will be a lot of that being able to use the same data from the BEAD program on what's eligible. So we'll give you guys that kind of full picture, what it cost, kind of like SURF did. What is that kind of total project cost for Comcast to be able to build out the county? And then what we're also exploring in some other counties, just as you heard with SURF, some of the challenges with them with the BEAD program is there's a lot of different requirements like Davis-Bacon and other requirements that kind of end up ultimately costing more for the projects to be done. So we have a couple other providers that we've also been engaging over the past couple of months. One of those is Lakeland Internet. It's actually Chuck Surak's company. He had some problems up in Steuben County himself, so he actually set up a broadband company himself, and is actually serving quite a bit of the Steuben County area and LaGrange and Noble area, as well as DeKalb. So we're going to be looking to schedule sometime in mid to late April or early May, having Lakeland Internet, and the technology is called Tirana. It is a fixed wireless solution, but I can tell you, like, it is nothing like I've ever seen with a fixed wireless solution as far as the speeds that it's able to actually get and the reliability. I went and saw it myself up in DeKalb County, and it's really unheard of a lot of times to get a fixed wireless solution that gets up to gig speeds. We were actually in a cemetery in the middle of the country in Butler. And we did a speed test right there on my phone. I said, just got a little shy of a gig speed there in the middle of nowhere in Butler. So we're looking to do a same tour of that in Whitley County. So once we get those dates together, I'd love to share those dates with you guys and love for you guys to see the technology yourselves. And ultimately the goal of that is want to be able to kind of have a couple options for you guys. Obviously, we're leveraging the NLC Round 4 program, ICP program, the BEAD program, and then just in case, like I said, with BEAD program, it'll be broken up into 3 buckets of dollars as far as funding. So the first bucket will be for fiber only, second bucket will be for fiber and fixed, and then the last bucket is for what we call high cost areas, which will be served through a fixed wireless solution. So we'll look to have, that's kind of like our backstop if we're, ultimately, my recommendation is as much of the county we can serve with the fiber solution would be the best. But then also, some of these areas where it's going to cost, over $15,000 to $20,000 per passing or per home or business to connect, I think it'd probably be in our best interest to look at a fixed wireless solution like the Toronto solution, be able to serve this. So I don't want you to just be able to see that solution for yourselves. Just kind of give you a ballpark number. We're looking in DeKalb County at the same option, and it's going to cost the county about $1.6 million to blanket the whole county with the Toronto technology. So as I said, that's definitely a much more affordable option as you saw with what Surf presented. But like I said, do know that that is a fixed wireless solution, and ultimately it is, as I think I've said before, fiber does cost more because you either have to bore it or hang it. So it does a little more costly to be able to serve those areas. So with that, I'll hit pause and happy to answer any questions for you guys this morning.
I have a question.
Yes.
Say that whoever would get awarded the funder for the grant.
Mhm.
I'm going to make up numbers. Say they're issued $3 million.
Mhm.
Are they going to start the project before they get the $3 million? Or how long does it take to get the $3 million? And if they say we're going to complete it in 3 years, do they wait till they get that money and then they start their 3 years?
Yeah. So each program is different as far as what's the requirement to build to that home or business. So for the NLC Round 4 program, there's once they sign the agreement with the state, there's a 2-year shot clock that starts that they have to build that out. With Allen County though, we actually had the provider we were awarded NLC Round 3 there, and the provider there actually started a couple months before because they likely knew that they already knew they were going to get awarded. But they didn't want to wait, and so they started early. So it kind of just depends on the provider on if they start early or not. But it is, once that agreement is signed, there's a shot clock that starts as far as them having to complete that project. So, but some of them do start early.
How long does it take for them to get their funds?
So like and this is a part of the frustration too. So originally this NLC Round 4 program was supposed to actually been started April of last year. They delayed and delayed and delayed that almost 8 months before it actually opened up. But usually it's once the announcement, so like June 5th, say if X provider you've been awarded in Whitley County, typically it takes like 2 to 3 months for them to kind of do all the paperwork and finalize those there's a couple like remaining address and all that kind of they finalize. So it usually takes 2 months after that award announcement's been made to officially sign that agreement.
So it's not years.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Zach?
Yeah, I have a question. Zach, if you could share with me what your thoughts are on when you anticipate working yourself out of a job. Because right now we're paying with ARPA funds.
Yep.
Those aren't always going to be there. So
Yep.
I'm just kind of curious as to that question on where we might have to look at changing over to provide those.
Yeah, absolutely. This conversation I have with a lot of communities, and the goal of mine actually is work myself out of the job here and be on to the next kind of local issue that's like this. So as I said, with the BEAD program, that officially will know eligibility is here in June. And then, the dollars will start rolling as far as like around Labor Day and that timeline as of right now. So, ideally by the end of the year, as far as we'll have, at least an agreement in place with the provider, whether it's through a grant or contracting directly with the provider to do that. Allen County, for instance, if awarded NLC round 4 with a couple of providers I work with there, will be the first fully served county in the state of Indiana. For the work I've done there with them, and I will look to stay on with them a little past to oversee the project completion. So it's always the comfort level of the community and what the need is for me there. So, and like I said, I think what we contracted in front of you guys today is for 6 months. There's a 30-day exit clause in it. If you guys aren't satisfied with the work you think that I'm doing, more than, I mean, that's there to be able to.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing. I think we're, taking some big steps here. So I just, from the financial part of it, I
Absolutely.
was curious.
Yep. And another thing too, like, been very just about, I mean, we've had no other additional expenses through my time that I've done my work with you guys. And if there has been, I found another way to pay for that. And like I said, super thankful for Dale and multiple other EDCs that's all kind of paying into this issue we have currently with the BEAD program, and not nickel diamond you guys for that. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Chad, do you have any additions to this, or Dale?
I don't have anything to add.
So you,
We approved it. We're just asking for the funding.
Yeah, and the only other comment I would make is that while a lot of us on the task force are keeping their eyes on this, I have 10 other colleagues that I meet with monthly, the other economic developers. We're all trying to stay on top of this, but we're not the experts that Zach and his team are. And so we appreciate the knowledge he brings from those other communities. And he and I were just having a conversation this morning, Lori. I don't want to be in the broadband business next year, so.
Neither do I.
Yeah. So, yes, so.
Nick, any comments? You're on the committee.
Yeah, and just to speak to Zach's instrumentality, I guess, to this project here, we would not be even where we are now, which I know it sounds like there's a lot up in the air. But Zach has been cornerstone to getting this at least to where we are now. We wouldn't even have a seat at the table without Zach and his team. So I know Teresa and I are extremely appreciative of the work you've done.
Thank you.
So there, I assume a new contract will be, or is this to have an extension clause to it or anything?
It's just a contract extension for 6 months.
And that's $3,000 a month, is it?
Yes, that's correct.
Last time we took it out of ARP funds. Discussion.
In my notes, it says Attorney Boxberger will review it. He reviewed it and everything's good with it.
Yeah, he's reviewed the existing contract. We're just asking to extend the existing contract for 6 months. And we think that using ARPA would be appropriate to continue to fund that.
Thank you.
Your pleasure.
I have a motion that we extend the contract for 6 months using ARPA funds.
That's second.
I have a motion by John, a second by Nick, that we extend the broadband consulting services agreement with SAM Strategy LLC for 6 months, and we take the funds out of ARPA. Any questions? Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of funding and extending the contract, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same, passes unanimous.
Thank you, council. Like I said, I'll be reaching back out to you guys once we have a formal couple dates set aside for doing the Lakeland Toronto tour. Really would welcome you guys to see that for yourselves. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Zach. And that, what he's talking about, they actually did a presentation at one of the Region 3A meetings, and it was pretty impressive. So I'd be super excited to see that person.
Okay, next on the agenda, Paul is not here. We had talked about this before. This is grant money that she's getting in. And She's just asking for approval on this. Any comments, Tiffany, on this?
Nope, she did say she's very confident there's gonna be something that's gonna keep coming in as well, so she's gonna budget for 25, 50.
Questions, discussion?
Is this just information or is that what needed to be moved?
But we've received it, she's just asking to get those spend it. We need to appropriate it.
Because it's a new grant, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Make a motion to allow her to spend the money. Second.
Got a motion by Thor, a second by Tom, that we approve for Paula to spend money on the grant. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same, passes. Okay, Brad?
Good morning.
Morning.
So Brad Allen, the county engineer, here to talk about at first bridges and small structures. Like was mentioned last month, this was originally presented to the commissioners and then to council members Arterbright and Warner, and then it was decided to actually come bring this all to you. So I'd like to start with a report on our current assets and their conditions. We currently have 87 bridges. A bridge is defined as a structure with a maximum span of 20 feet or greater. Leads to some interesting situations. If you see on the front page of the actual report, there's two pictures there. The top picture, I don't have it. The top picture is two pipes. That is actually a bridge. The bottom structure, which looks like a bridge, is actually a small structure because it's less than 20 feet. Curious thing there. So out of our 87 bridges, most of them are concrete. We still have some steel bridges in there. As far as small structures, there are 289 total small structures. Almost all of them are steel. We have very few concrete small structures, a few timber small structures left over. Of the small structures, you can see that the vast majority of those are in the 3 to 6 foot range, small range there. But then we do have several that go up to almost 20. History on the, or questions on the current structures so far? So as far as the last 5 years of history of replacements, you can see on the table there how much money we spent. Bridges have been replaced using the annual bid program. There was a line item on there, concrete bridge, one each. Vendors would basically give us a price catalog on if the bridge is this big, or kind of by square foot, by length, by width, with some other stuff in there. Small structures are typically bid out to that process. We bid out the pipe materials to pipe suppliers, and we bid out the labor to contractors, and we pick the lowest bidder there. So as far as conditions of our existing structures, we are looking very good when it comes to bridges. We have 0 that are rated in poor condition. Poor, fair, good is simply rated on based on their structural rating. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10, poor being 1 to 4, fair being 5 to 7, and good being 8 to 10. So it's very good that we don't have any poorly rated structures. A bridge is poorly rated when any structural element gets to the point where it can no longer support the weight that it's designed. And then they would have to be load rated. We do have one load rated bridge in the county, but that is not necessarily because of its condition. My understanding was shortly after it was built, the load rating requirements changed. So it was not able to support the largest emergency vehicle, the fire truck. So that had to be load rated for the emergency. do have 16% of our small structures rated in poor condition, and we'll be focusing on. So improvement options for fixing our structures. I have listed there, they are in more detail in the report. I have 3 highlighted that I'd like to talk over more. Replacement, obviously, is the most expensive one, the most intensive one. I listed 13 bridges over the next 6 years that are recommended for replacement, and 55 small structures recommended for replacement over the next 8 years. On the chart there are what the inspection reports recommended, the timelines of those replacements, and kind of add up the total cost if we were to follow that. And and that's at the end of the improvement options on the report in the large table and a more spread out table. But you can see if we were to follow this recommendation, we have a lot of replacements up front and very quickly overload our Bridge fund. I also wanted to highlight overlays, specifically polymeric overlays are becoming increasingly popular. That uses an epoxy resin-based overlays, basically spreading epoxy over the bridges and then covering it with gravel for traction. This prevents water from permeating into the concrete and eroding the bridges even faster. I've been learning more about less expensive ways to perform this, including putting it on our annual bid package, instead of doing it by project, and also seeing if it would be worth acquiring the equipment to have our county forces do it, since it basically is spreading epoxy out.
Do they give you any idea how much longer a bridge might last if you do that? Like 3 or 4 years or more?
So, typically, we have a couple bridges that have been recommended for this as soon as possible because they have large cracks in the decks.
Yep.
But for a preservation practice, they recommend when the deck is like a 6 or 7 out of 10, that you go ahead and do this, and it would add several years to it. It's like, I don't know the specifics, but it's kind of like doing a chip seal over your new HMA. It extends the life of that chip seal by 5 years.
Okay.
Other preservation things that I don't list are, one of the big thing is repairing voids in structures. I actually went out with the bridge inspection team last month, and there was this particular bridge, the wall that protects the piles, the columns that the bridge is sitting on had sunk, had settled, and it exposed the metal piles, which were not treated to be protected against the elements, and they were slowly rusting away. And so all we have to do is go in there and spread some, they call it flowable fill or kind of a runny concrete. You pour it in there, cover it all up, it seals the piles and keep them from degrading. So those are simple repairs we're going to look into. We can do with county forces. Also, joint seal replacements. So whenever 2 sections of a bridge come together, there's a joint. They purposely leave a joint there for expansion and contraction. Those joints have been filled with foam or some sort of glue or something that keeps water from getting in there. They eventually fill with dirt, they degrade, and they need to be cleaned out or even pulled out and put back in. That is another thing we can do with county forces to extend the life of our bridges. And the cleaning is always a good thing. If we were to follow the recommendations in exactly to a T in our inspection reports, I have a chart here on what would happen to our Bridge fund. You see the bars are our expenditures, and the green is the balance. I think I have it listed on the report. The assumptions I made, doing a starting balance of just over $3 million, which is where it was on December 31st, and the changes in the report. I changed the annual revenue to $1.2 million based on what we actually anticipate this year. And then also a 5% inflation for costs, but not receipts. Kind of gives us a spread as we move forward. And then there's a little bit of uncertainty because we're and figuring out how exactly we're moving forward with replacements. And I can talk about that more in the five-year plan. Any questions on the report? Okay.
That was short and sweet, so.
There's a little bit more detail in the report. I'm trying not to read it word for word.
Sure.
So the five-year plan. I've listed the priorities here on the slide. They're also on the first page of the report. Basically, we're going to focus on structures with a 4 rating, say 4 or worse. Aiming for roughly 6 small structures a year, which should give us about $300,000 a year, depending on if we use contractor or if we can use county forces. Also, performing routine maintenance is prioritized because it's cheaper. We can use our own workforce for that. Higher cost preservation stuff to extend the life of our bridges that are in fair condition, and then replacing 1 bridge a year starting in 2025. I also wanted to keep an eye on using federal aid for bridge replacements. We've decided that for the next 5 years or so, that it's not necessarily the best mechanism for us right now. There's a lot more red tape involved. The actual total cost of the bridge replacement is a lot more, almost 2 or 3 times more than using local funding, but we do get 80% of that back. But we have to have full balance on hand because of the reimbursement. So, but I'll keep an eye. Then here is a breakdown. The report has more details by year of the specifics of the plan, but here's a breakdown of the costs. And then the last slide is a new chart, which extends the point which Hume Bridge goes negative by about 3 years. But we will continue to look into cost saving mechanisms to extend that. And if we have to, our bridges are in pretty good condition. Their replacements can be pushed a little bit so long as we continue to preserve them and keep an eye on their condition. Any final questions?
I have. You talked through this, of course, this is Tom and I's second time to set it through this, but you mentioned several times of using our resources and our manpower. Have you talked with Ryan concerning this? And
Scott, I agree as well.
They think that's feasible?
Yes. Good. And it was actually Scott Pettigrew's idea to see if we can do that polymeric overlay with county forces. So we can look into that. Harrison County was very effective using their annual bid process for the polymeric overlays. They were actually going for a federal aid program specifically for preservation. They had their 20% portion was $1.8 billion for overlaying, I think it was 22 bridges. That program fell through, so they went ahead and did it through the annual bid package. They added like 3 more bridges to the work, and they did it for a total of $1.8 million, which was their 20% contribution. And that was a big part of sparking me into looking at doing it annual bid.
Okay. We'll digest this. Budget time is a good time to talk about this again. So any questions for Brad? Okay. Your next item.
So the next item is the side-by-side quotes. There should be 3 quotes in your packet. There are for 3 brands of vehicles. 2 of them were from essentially the same dealer. Apex has acquired Track and Trail. But so there's a quote for John Deere, for Ranger, and the Can-Am Defender. Our primary Two primary things we were looking for in these vehicles were a fully enclosed cab with heating and air conditioning, which is what allows us to more comfortably use it all year round, which we would want to do. And additionally, turn signal add-ons for using it on the road. And also models that have you, can get up to speed and be a little bit more safer on the road. So those are the two things. The quotes are very similar. They're very close to each other. The Polaris technically comes in at the least at $27,700. The John Deere is $40 more than that, and then the Can-Am is $1,000 more. Talking to Max, who was the one who actually went and talked to the dealers and looked at these, the John Deere has a couple small advantages over the other one, but in the end, he'd be fine with it. And then,
What's your thought on you trading your four-wheeler in?
we also talked about that this morning. We will probably end up doing trading and we're trying to sell it. We do not see it being used if we were to keep it. And so we didn't actually get trade-in quotes from any of these dealers, but we suspect that $1,000 might be a good ballpark for the trading value if we wanted to sell it.
I'd asked Brad yesterday, because a couple of you had mentioned to me there was not a trade-in quote on this, so I mentioned it to him, so he was prepared for the question. And I'm glad you guys discussed that, and whether we should keep it or not, or does it have any use for if one person wants to go out and that, and I think you answered that, so I appreciate that.
We did confirm, I don't know if you've all seen the tile locator that might have been sitting in the back of Max's truck. It's a big spool of copper wire that will fit in the back of all of these. So we'll be able to take that out more easily.
What about, I think a question that came up also was, if you're gonna put this on a trailer, then you're gonna take the mini excavator off and use that same trailer?
I think it would be tight to get both of them on there. And I think that the weight is already pretty close to the truck's maximum capacity. So we might not necessarily be able to do that. However, if both of us go out, or if the second person goes out, they could just tag along behind and side by side with these particular models.
You don't think a second trailer is needed?
I don't.
Okay, 'cause I'd hate to see us run up extra miles on these side by sides. I mean, they're made for some running, but not, I don't think, a tremendous amount of miles, so. Because I probably could entertain a trailer for it, but that's just my opinion.
Well, with only one on-hand towing vehicle, I'm not sure the second trailer would be all that beneficial unless we borrowed a truck from.
Other questions for Brad?
You've looked into insurance on the side by side to be driving on the highway.
I've not asked that.
Because if we're going to drive on the highway, make sure it's insured like any other vehicle.
And have the sheriff look at it. For a license plate number.
Should be exempt on governmental agency on ATVs.
Were we doing this money out of county general? I don't remember where we decided, or how we decided. Commissioners, any help on that? What's your thoughts, please?
Commissioners haven't voted on this. This isn't, we've discussed it.
Okay.
We're in favor. We've not yet voted on this. So we
Okay.
can't make a recommendation where it would be paid for.
Okay.
Again, we're supportive of it.
How much money do we have in the rainy day fund?
55,000, some change. Pretty much depleted.
Yeah. Okay.
Brad, which one of these are you leaning towards?
It kind of seemed like there was a small lead where John Deere was talking next, although he's also familiar with the Rangers and would be comfortable in that as well. He does not know too much about the game.
The exact dollar amount your rainy day is $55,433.80.
What's been stand out to see this year?
We have spent as of today, $167,345.
Yeah. That's the end of the year. There's cash reserves of nearly $3 billion, I believe. So with an additional appropriation, I could see that being an appropriate place to pay for this money, but we have to cut back and ask for change, which would need to be advertised.
Which fund is that?
Or potentially Kid Cap could be another appropriate budget to use.
I would be in favor of CUMCAT over CEDAR. CUMCAT has just a little over $1,037,751.95.
I'll make a motion to approve a maximum of 27,736.76 come out of Kim Cap. And the decision on the final vendor being made by the commissioners and Brad and your staff.
I'd second that.
Okay, I have a motion. 27,736, is that correct, Stuart?
27,736.76 was the quote that was slightly higher than the other one that you wanted to make a choice between. So that would cover it, maybe to the good of $40 back if they choose whichever one they choose.
My question is, we have a motion and a second of that. My question is, when you say turn signal, does that include all the safety lights you need? I would assume that since you guys are going to be on the road and you have, I didn't know if that was going to be an additional cost.
So like amber rotating lights or something like that. Since this vehicle can get up to speed and because it's so small, I foresee us not like parking on the road too often and getting off this road. And if we do need a light, I think that we could probably buy a plug-in one that magnetizes on with our.
I don't know if this is the point you're making or not, but it has brake lights, it has tail lights, it has turn signals on the front and the back. That's part of the turn signal package, right?
Right, should be.
Okay.
But I was talking about when they're running, even at 30 miles an hour. There, you know, people driving out here a little crazy. And
This vehicle run through the speed limit.
I understand that, but you don't necessarily run them at that speed and that, I'm just looking for safety.
Most of these that are built now are built for that speed, and most of the people that own them
I've got
do
one.
run them at that speed.
So this turn signal add-on for $300. What I just heard was it already had a turn signal on. Is that what you
The
just
John
said?
Deere comes with the.
So then that throws the bid off.
No, it's included in that 27,736.
Okay.
For the John Deere, and Polaris, I had, when I gave you the total, I had added it in.
So that
Shows-
total does include the $300.
So for the Polaris, it shows 27,399.
Yeah, I was looking at the rear.
And it should be, you add the 300, it's 27,600.
Does the John Deere include rear turn signals? Because the purchase order here only says a front turn signal light kit.
What, they're wanting to charge you $92 for it, but then up here on this one, they want $300 to have everything.
That is something we will have to confirm, that it's also on the rear. I don't see why they would put certain signals on the front and not the.
That was my thought.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Nick did. And with the discretion, final decision made by commissioners and Brad on which we. Any further questions, discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same. Passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, ARPA funds discussion. Tom and I met with Chad and Rob, I believe, talked about this. I don't know if Teresa was, can't remember. You were there or not, Teresa, but.
No, but I followed up with,
So. And the decision on what we're going to use ARPA funds has to be cemented by the end of the year, right?
So the money has to be, all funds are obligated by December 31st.
And spent by the 20.
Spent by December 31st, 2026.
So this is just an open discussion on.
So I did, right with you today, kind of where we stand.
Thank you.
Like,
So you can see the two deposits, distributions of ARPA that were made and the dates that were made, and the total amount on top. Also, you can see that we do have to pay bank fees on these funds. It's about $35 a month for bank fees. And so far, year to date, our expenditures have been the Blue Lake Property Owners Association for their flooding issue, their dam issue that they had. We did spend $227,000 on radio equipment, sheriff's department. That was the HTs. There's a remaining allocation that will be used for additional radio equipment for the new dispatch center. We've paid Baker Tilly from these funds. We've paid Sand Strategies.
We just in the last council meeting agreed to pay the Parkview from these funds for ambulance service. The work at the courthouse so far year to date, or so far since receiving the ARPA funds, we've spent $703,126.17 of the $6,597,109. So on the back of this, we can talk about commissioners' additional ARPA plan. Part of that, so on the back, this is what the commissioners had presented in their ARPA plan. The funds had not yet been allocated. If you recall, when we came forward with our ARPA plan, council elected to kind of piece it out, just break it apart and say, come back each time. So we did and still do believe that we would like to make a $1 million contribution to regional sewer district. That's not all the way. And actually, I noticed that Steve Henshin is here today. Who works closely, he works for JPR, he works closely with the regional sewer district. And Scott Wagner is in the back of the room. So I know it's not necessarily part of this on the agenda, but they're both here. If there are questions about that piece.
You want to refresh us, Steve and Scott?
Yes, I'd be glad to. My name again is Steve Henshin, an engineer with Jones Peter Rupinski. We are the engineer for the Bossier County Regional Water and Sewer District. And timing of this is pretty coincidental. Just this last week, we were required to provide our main funding agency, through the Louisiana Finance Authority, and excuse me, on our project and the status of where we are in our request for funds. And so I'm just handing this out. I'm not going to go through all this. A few things I want to point out. First of all, I'd just like to give an update. We broke this project up into two phases originally. Phase one became Coessie, Dunphy, Stable Acres neighborhood, and what we call County Line South, which is just south of Stable 14. That project was done with a $5 million grant from the state water infrastructure. We're complete, 100% complete with that. Customer connections are starting. We just had a couple start this month, and we expect them to continue through this summer. So that project we felt came to a successful conclusion. We are good stewards with the grant funds, and we had some actually grant funds left. We asked if we could use those funds for advancing this next phase of the project. The state said no on that, but we still were able to accomplish everything that we hoped to with that first phase. So the second phase then is covering what we call the Churubusco South and West. And if you go to the very last page of that handout, is a map and one of the memos. So I just want to refresh your memory to what we're trying to accomplish with this next phase. And it's primarily the orange or red shaded areas. One is along US 33, covering Circle Drive, Carlin Court, Orchard Lane, and then County Road 375 towards the end. Then we have the Churubusco West segment. First of all, the Churubusco South, which is along 33, has about 95 connections to be made with that project. All unsewered. Some are on town of Churubusco water, but most are on wells. The town has some water along Circle Drive and along US 33. Then Churubusco West has about 40 connections in that zone. And that's along State Road 205 there on the western side of Churubusco. So that kind of just refreshes your memory on what areas where we're planning to serve. One thing I wanted to point out, and Scott might chime in here, these have been areas that have been targeted as being having septic issues for years. In fact, last fall, they had to do some emergency repairs for an old tile that 4 septics were tied into along County Road 375. They actually plugged up. I think one house actually had a sewage backing up.
everybody's scrambling, trying to find, even the town of Churubusco helped out trying to look for where this tile was plugged. It's just an unknown tile that's taking that septic effluent somewhere and not really knowing where it's going. Got anything you want to add?
Well, I know where it's going. It's going to the Eel River.
Yes.
So everything south of Churubusco goes to the Eel River in Allen County, just east of our line, and then goes back into it again, of course. That was discovered in 1998 when Dick Conroe built his factory, and he hit the tile that ran all that sewage down to the Eel River. And so at that time, we approached the city of Churubusco to get that done, and here we are still waiting for that to accomplish. Yes, they all directly discharges to the Eel River.
It should be noted that these areas are unincorporated. They're next to corporate limits of the town of Churubusco, but they are unincorporated. So they're not really under the jurisdiction of the town. So with that, we had come to you last year, I believe, with a proposed plan. The cost to sewer these areas, total project cost is about $6.7 million. I'm now looking on page 6 of 11, if you look at the very bottom, with that overall project budget. You can see construction costs are around $5.8 million, about $800,000 in $870 in non-construction costs to develop the project. We had put together a plan where we are hoping to use the same model that we did for the phase 1 project, where we'll be offered grant funding from the SRF in the amount of about $5.7 million. And then with a commitment from the county through the ARP funds of about $1 million. And one thing that we keep hearing over and over from the Indiana Finance Authority is that they are really encouraging projects to use some ARP funding for these infrastructure projects. It's one of their main purposes. And while they don't come out and say this, the fact that we have a commitment from the county for this is a huge factor in how we score the project and how high up the ladder we might get ranked. So we didn't have that last time when we submitted, and we're hoping with this commitment we have now, that's really going to advance the thing and help us gain that funding. Last thing that I just wanted to give you about, if you go to page 2 of 11, sorry, going backwards through this memo was set up in a different format. Towards the bottom of the page, there's a category called schedule. So this is the real nitty gritty. We have submitted all our documentation to the state revolving fund, which is the program that administers things through Indiana Finance. They will now be scoring our project along with probably about 200 other projects. This project, when it was initially developed, scored very well. It was like 9th on the list. Last year, when we didn't have a full commitment and the town of Churubusco wasn't quite ready, we dropped down into the 30s or something. We're hoping that we can move up. We have to usually get into the top 15 or so in order to be qualified to get the grant funding that we request. So the project is basically designed. We have one piece of land we're still trying to acquire for one small pump station. We're working on that, and we hope to have that worked out here early summer, if at all possible. We are planning to advertise in August or maybe as late as September. And the deal there is SRF, they'll score these projects. We'll know where we score on July 1st. They'll publish the list. So we're gonna have a pretty good indication then of, okay, did we qualify for grant funding? We'll know usually by end of July or end of August at the latest, if not only will we get funding, will we get subsidization or grant funding? Because usually if you're in the top 15, it's automatic, you can get loan money, but for us to make this project work, we're really pushing that you need the grant subsidization. So we will know that we're expecting by end of August. So we want to be bid ready by that time and be able to go out for bids, receive bids, evaluate them, and be ready to close on the financing in December, which I know is what's also needed for the commitment of the using the ARPA funds. We'll have no problem
being complete by 2026. This is a 12-month to 15-month long construction project that we're talking here. So that's where we are at. We wanted to make sure we had a schedule and a plan that would work together to make sure that we can use the ARPA funds if they are formally allocated to us. We will know that, as I said, most likely in July. Might be optimistic, but we should know by August what kind of funding package we've been offered through that project. So we would be, at that time, more than happy to come back and report back to council exactly where we stand with the scoring of the project, and whether or not we'll be able to use those funds in this project. Any questions?
I have a question for Chad. You have until December to allot money. How long is it before it has to actually be spent?
December 31st of 2026.
Does that give you enough time?
Yeah,
You said it was a long project.
I said, yes, it's a 12 to 15 month long project. So if we allocate funds in December, construction contract time would start in January, and we would typically give about 12 to 15 months to complete the project. So that will get done within the 24 months that we have to actually spend.
So Steve, when's your date that you need to know about the $1 million?
Well, it's kind of a catch-22, okay, right? SRF wants to know that we have a commitment from the county. You guys want to know, do we have a commitment from SRF? We've put this in that we have had a commitment, we called it a tentative commitment from the ARP funds, okay? So it would be in that July or August, they scored us and then made an offer of what grant funding will be provided to us, but we'll know for sure that this project is a go or not. So I would say by that August date, end of August is when we're going to know from SRF what they're proposing. And that's where, in August, early September, then we need your formal commitment to allocate those funds.
My personal viewpoint on it, I am in favor of the Cherubusco South project. I'm in favor of the ARPA funding along with it. Fortunately, I stand to benefit from it, so I will abstain from any voting.
So we've heard this before, good presentation, but so I'm correct again, the county will put this all in, and then it'll be turned over to Cherubusco.
That, with the plan that we did on the phase one, you're exactly right.
Okay.
If we get 100% grant subsidization, then those assets, as soon as it's built, will be turned over to town of Cherubusco. Just like on phase one, the Dunphy system was turned over to Columbia City. They're operating that. I'm sorry, Coesty. And then Dunphy, Stable Acres, and County Line South, those infrastructure have been turned over to Aqua Indiana, who's the operator of that system out there in Allen County and that side.
And then we don't have any other,
That's why we don't have a maintenance department, we don't have a billing department,
we won't have any other money going out.
We're not a utility.
We're not
So
in charge of
like that.
anything else.
Right,
We get it in, and we're good.
but they're customers of that utility.
Yeah, they'll be billed directly by the town of Cherubusco.
That's what I thought, but it's been a while since you had this. I think that's the way it is. I just want to make sure. So,
Who takes care of it, Scott?
But the utility does. Now, in the phase one, the customers themselves own the pit and pump, once it's been installed.
Yeah, what Scott's talking about is on the phase one project, Coesty, Dunphy, et cetera, that was a pressure sewer system. Okay, so it's just small diameter pipes, 2 to 3 inches. And then there's grinder stations that go in. And those grinder stations are owned by, they've been turned over to the property owner, so they own and maintain those. The Cherubusco system is a conventional gravity sewer system, so there's no like on-site, with the exception of, there's about 2 properties sit really low along US 33 that have to be, they're actually in a hole, they have to be served by a grinder station. Those will be owned by the property owner.
Rest of the system, then the main collection system in the roads or easements is owned and maintained by the town of Churubusco.
I have a question on some of the non-construction costs.
Yeah.
So we're giving money to the town of Churubusco essentially to do this. Am I understanding this correctly?
That is correct.
So they're still charging a connection fee of $30,000, $31,000, is that correct?
That is correct. And that's the same model that on phase one, Columbia City had a connection charge. That was paid about $13,000. And Aqua, Indiana had a connection charge of about $180,000. That was built into the project budget. The Aqua, Indiana, though, they actually give a refund back to the district every time a customer connects. It's just part of their like development agreement that they have. So, but that's very common practice, even though in this case, they're accepting the infrastructure. There is a capacity charge that gets charged to that project that's adding capacity into their system.
It seems there's a lot of non-construction costs that I'm not, and maybe it's just because I don't understand it as well as, I'm not an engineer. So
Sure.
It just seems there's a lot of non-construction costs that will go into this that are pretty high. I understand it's almost a, $7 million project, but, almost $1 million of that is non-construction fees.
And so 800,000 out of 5.8, I didn't do the math, but that's about 20%. These types of federally funded projects, we usually see costs in that 18 to 25% range. Couple of things that are in here just as a conservative budget that likely won't be used would be if we get all grant, there probably will not be a local bond council, the 48,000. The land easement acquisition is the budget. We don't think we'll be spending all that, maybe about half of that. Surveying design, those were most of that. We originally designed the entire project to be funded as one project. So these were just some final costs that were needed just to be able to manage this project and finish it up and close it as a separate project. So I understand your concern. But these are dollars that we see that are typically in line with these types of projects.
Can you speak a little bit to what miscellaneous administration costs are and what's included in those?
That's typically things like when we get easements, we have to file and record them with the recorder's office. If we have mailings to do, postage costs, those types of things.
So if costs, and let's assume that we don't need to use some of these line items that you're estimating, where does that go back into?
Great question. That is something that we should sit down and decide between us and State Revolving Fund and the county. Many times they look at a program of proportionate draws. So if we have the first draw, let's say is $1 million. They'll say, okay, since SRF is funding 5.7 and you're funding 1, they split the costs proportionately between that. So at the end, if you did it that method, as you would draw things down, then there would be funds left over.
Sure.
I'm not sure what happened with unused ARPA funds. If we've committed it and we get down to the end and there's $100,000 left out of that $1 million, I'm not exactly sure what the use of that is.
We'll have to have a memorandum of understanding about you established, because there's going to be the question about interest too,
right?
Things like that are going to come up. So it'll be a similar MOU like what the Redevelopment Commission has with the county for the jail fund. Just that's something that our county attorney could draft up, and all that can be determined in the MOU.
Sure.
Good discussion.
Yeah.
Do you have phase 3 and 4 figured out already?
Well, that's one of the board's next plans is they wanted to get this project funded. And then they need to start sitting down and say, okay, what's our next target areas to be served? There's actually 15 or so service areas identified throughout the county that have a need. Some of them are the small incorporated, unincorporated communities.
Yeah, back in the,
Scott can speak to that.
20 years ago, came up with a list and categorized them by environmental issues. And I would say if we can complete phase 1 and phase 2, that would take about 50% of the total number of septic or environmental issues out of that equation, which is great, because we're tackling the big ones first, get them out of the way. But we do have communities like Tri-Cedar Lake that might work with Tri-Lake Sewer District to complete that. That's the one that's got issues there. We got other subdivisions in small towns like Collins, Etna, Colomer, places like that where they have direct discharge. Etna for sure. I've tested the tiles on Etna. They go right to Old Lake, which goes to Loon Lake, then back to the canoe. So there are issues out there. The numbers aren't as big as what we're looking at with phase 1 and phase 2, but they are there. Most of those areas are pretty close, within a mile or two of existing infrastructure. So we should be able to assist to get to those places. So.
Well, that's good to hear that you're gonna have at least 50% of them done in phase 1.
I would say, because we're gonna have almost 300 residences removed from the waterways, which is significant. If you look at the rest of the list, it's just smaller chunks.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, Chad's a liaison on the sewer district board, so commissioner, so keep up to date as we hear more news from the Indiana Finance Authority on the funding. Thank you for the time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So back to the ARPA fund sheet, you can see our cash balance is $5,892,706.48. We will be coming back for an allocation because obviously the same strategies contract is just renewed, but we'll come back for an allocation to cover 6 months. And then if you recall, our last ARPA ordinance that was passed rolled the remaining balance into what's called lost revenue, which kind of opens up the flexibility to use those funds for things that we would normally spend money on, not building new buildings, purchasing buildings or anything like that, but just normal expenses like our IT expenses, our electric bill or gas bill, just normal expenses. So we did roll that money that we committed to the jail project into lost revenue. There is room there to pay for things that we would normally pay, which frees up that $3 million that we can put into the jail project. And then, of course, we had earmarked funds to renovate the community corrections facility as well.
I'd personally like to see some funds earmarked towards broadband. Just to see, well, just to have that, maybe not appropriated, but earmarked, I guess, towards broadband, just so we can have a match if it's required for the state to get.
How quickly would that happen? Would that happen in this calendar year? Because it has to be.
It's a good question. That would be a exact question. I would say once we know, what we could get from the BEAD funding, we would be able to have a better idea of what a county match would look like.
Chad, if we do this plan and something falls out after the end of the year, say broadband, just because we just talked about that, and we allocated some money toward it, and then we don't use it or not going to use it after the end of the year, what happens to those funds?
That's a great question. I did
Can they be reallocated?
I believe they can. We just have to, we have reporting that we have to do with our fund. So I think we just have to update our reporting. I think they'd like to know that we have a plan
Right.
by the end of this year.
Yeah, I understand that, but I was just saying, if something happened, Steve, somebody drops $1 million on him, you don't have to do $1 million on the sewer project. Can we reallocate that after the end of the year? That's what
I
it
will be sitting on a webinar. Teresa forwarded me the email. I think it's in May. It said, they highly recommend sitting on it because it's kind of getting down to the final wire of these funds. So if they speak on that, I can let you guys know what their guidance is on that, or if they bring that up. And I'm currently working on the report right now that's due by the end of the month.
On the money here, I've been sitting in on a lot of the fire chiefs meetings, and a lot of talk on these 800 radios. The VHF band just keeps getting smaller. Where we're going to go with that, Amy and Ed are really on top of that too. But just like we said, I'm not sure it's going to come quick enough to support some money to them by the end of the year. They can get everything figured out. I'd still like to see some towards it if we get that. So just for a little heads up.
Yeah, and I actually thought this discussion today is we make a list. We come back at our next meeting, maybe talk about it some more. If you have a little time, but that we make a list of things that maybe we would look at to fund and then come back. I wasn't looking for decisions from council today, particularly whatever you guys' thoughts are. That's my thought on this. So if you have projects, ideas,
You want those down?
yeah, I think,
Like I said, I'm still leaning towards the fire department on the 800 radios, whether they're going to need some money or help or not. But if you're going to make a list, I'd like to see that on the list anyway.
I think it's appropriate that we look at what kind of day-to-day bill paying that we can do, as Commissioner Banks mentioned, that would free up money that's going to stay in other accounts. We certainly could take the last bit of whatever and point it towards that just to complete our total. But I would like to see us get a little more aggressive with being conservative with paying those things and saving money that in those accounts that it would normally be paid out of.
Well, and the ARPA funds were issued to help those that were harmed during COVID. And I would like to make a suggestion, we give some allotment to the 4-H community. They've got a lot of repairs coming up to the building we're gonna need some help with. So if there's any way to push some more towards that, that would be my suggestion.
Nick, do we need to bring up about our community corrections committee meeting?
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago, I think, with Paula and Mark from maintenance, talking about the repairs to the facility over at community corrections. And I think it was 500 some thousand is what he was looking at for total project cost. And honestly, it intrigued me that, Bowen said they were selling their building downtown. I'm wondering if that's something we could explore after we get the structural engineers report from the community correction facility. If it's a feasible switch, if it's, obviously that's a little work you guys would have to do, but if it's not feasible for them to stay in that building where they're at currently, to switch over to where the Bowen Center was downtown.
What is the 375 on the community center for here?
Just was money that was earmarked for renovations to community corrections.
We still own the jail downtown though. So if we're gonna look at renovations and using that money for that, I mean, I think we've determined that downtown isn't the area for that. And I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but I think, there's another option there too, that we already own a building downtown.
No, I agree. I mean, whatever works best, it was just a thought.
Well, we always have the option. The second entrance to the jail would open up so much for the future, building on that property. So if we had that second entrance, if we could continue that discussion and see if that's feasible.
Okay, I'm writing these down as a list. I think some of you guys are. So, and Thor, your comment on the jail brings up a good question. What are you commissioners thinking, Chad, on the old jail?
We're still gonna use that space until we find a better alternative for corrections. And then at that point, we can put out an RFT or some sort of request that people could offer their input
On the old jail.
Yeah.
Teresa, have we got approval on funding on the structural engineer?
Yeah, if you remember, Martin Riley came back and they wouldn't even be able to look at the building until September, and it was more expensive, so we went with it first.
Do you have a timeline on that? Do you remember? I don't.
I'd have to look at it, at the top of my head. It should be in your email as well.
Will there be any expenses on the old jail we should be maybe holding some back for? That would meet the time frame?
Yeah, I'm just not sure about the final rule.
Yeah.
And how- This is not the final rule. This is a little piece of the final rule. And I'm just not sure of the rules. How we can submit it.
Is probation, they're gonna stay in the,
Yeah, probation's gonna move upstairs to the administrative area.
Maybe you could use the, for the clerks, election equipment, so they don't have to rent a storage facility.
Yeah, my only concern with that is we don't know what he did.
Yeah.
This isn't, what I've written down is community correction facilities, broadband, fire radios, 4-H. I personally think that we have to take a look at the Bowen Center, the old Bowen Center, just because it's so close. I heard they were wanting 900 some thousand, I don't know for sure. You're here, so.
Yeah.
But I think it's close. I think we ought to at least take a look at it. Second entrance to the jail, or to the jail property, the new. And then I just put old jail and question mark there. The other thing this does is give us time to think if there's any other projects. Also, a lot of times discussion stirs some thinking and
Yeah, I mean, the commissioners will continue to work together and we'll bring forward items and ask them. A lot of what I heard today, I'm very supportive of helping the township fire 800 radios. I'm very supportive of that. A lot of what I've heard is great stuff. So the commissioners will continue to work on drilling down the ARPA plan and coming back with amended resolutions and asking for allocations.
Yeah, good. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Again, I thought our discussions on a lot of these topics was really good. All right, we'll move on. Stephanie's starting to jab us to get in our mind if we start thinking about our budget sessions. She put out a tentative budget calendar. So your thoughts?
June the 19th won't work for me.
Won't work for me either.
It's a holiday. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Holiday for what?
Juneteenth.
Yeah, but not for 2024. I don't think you guys have June. Well, this,
I mean,
yeah, for 2024, we don't have June.
Approve it for 24.
So it's a work day for us
Approved, or not yet approved, but it's proposed
for 25.
25, we'll start reserving.
that's Old Settlers Week.
And again, these are just dates that I've plugged in kind of off of.
I'll be out of town anyway the week of the 19th, so.
Tied to Ken on Old Settlers Day. So there's three of us.
That's why I said.
Yeah, and I thought,
That's
I told her this is
working now.
good.
Because that's usually the problem.
John, you and I are making some tough decisions.
Without a floor. So,
And I know last year a couple of you adopted, you'd like to have more meetings, so I just kind of wanted to throw this out here. Do we want to add additional meetings and put it on the calendar so we're not a week before trying to hurry up and plan something? So it's just kind of tentative things that I need to have done, and then also what you guys would like for meeting dates or a meeting date.
Other than the 19th, I mean, everything else looks fine to me.
June's very clear for me also. We just figure out a date.
don't bother your golf day, John.
So what's the last week?
Everything bothers a golf game.
So what about the last week?
Yeah, that's the 24th through the 28th.
Yes. The 45th.
That's Tuesday.
That's good.
Thor will be.
What about it?
Yard
That
and
work for
everything.
you, Nick?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Stuff will slow down the end of June.
25th?
Let's get to the end of June. So we-
So are we setting the 24th of June? Is that what we just did?
25th.
25th, 26th. Tuesday the 25th.
Tuesday, the 25th.
And you would like that to be the all-day department head meeting?
Would like for it to be. Don't like that.
But let's don't take a 2-hour lunch. I mean, let's just get it, take a lunch and come back, get it done.
Just bring lunch in and work through lunch.
There you go.
Yeah, do that too.
That would be my preference.
People within this building can be optional, come in early after lunch.
Budget meeting, 8 AM. Is that time we're starting?
Whatever time you guys would like. I can't remember if I'm pulling it up, if it was 8 or 9 last year.
It was 8.
Do a-
8 works.
8, okay. 8 o'clock, bring lunch in.
We're bringing our own lunch, is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
From the,
Or have it delivered.
Okay,
Any additional meetings you'd like to have added or any other changes?
maybe we'll do that at our next meeting. We'll think about this. Okay. We're all pretty well okay with that. We'll move on. Personnel.
You gotta do this, we're gonna do this one first.
Oh, God's still here. No, we don't do that.
We've already,
Yeah, we've already approved this is for the health department and the 2 vehicles, $50,048. We need a motion to let him spend that money.
I'll make a motion on the additional appropriation, which is coming out of your health fund, yeah, which we discussed last month, for the $50,048 for the two new vehicles. Cars.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Second by Nick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those do the same. Passes.
Did we ever say where the cars are going that are being replaced?
I cleaned them up and got them all ready for the next user in the parking lot for the commissioners' use. What they want to do.
And as you recall, we're going to use this as a pool vehicle. Is there multiple departments who have expressed a need for a vehicle? So, two good working vehicles that they could sign out and use when they need to. Maybe that helps us not have.
I think minutes of our last meetings. Talking about, discussion about that, so. Okay.
Personnel committee? Yeah, we met last month. For the auditor, I'm going to turn it over to her and she'll be able to explain what the personnel committee decided to do with her two positions rather than me trying to stumble through it and get you all confused.
So there were two items that were discussed, one of which they gave a favorable recommendation to council with to bring. Currently, I have a payroll deputy 2/file management clerk and a payroll deputy. What we'd like to see is to bring that deputy 2 up to a payroll deputy, so they're both main priorities are payroll. That way they are both responsible for all of the same duties, all the same responsibilities. That way, if one is on vacation, there should be no hiccups on any part of the process because they both know every bit of payroll. And that was approved or to be brought to you. The other part of that was that file management clerk piece that is attached to the current needs to go somewhere. So I don't know if you remember back, it's when all of the gold star was required for driver's license. It was wanted that this building file management be open during regular business hours. And I think Mary's out at like 2. So there was been 2 to 4:30 that needed to be covered, and that was put in the auditor's office. So we would still need to do something with that piece. So my recommendation was to put that on my part-time that split with the treasurer's job duties. They had us did a refactor during the personnel committee and then decided to send it to us to kind of see how the committee did factoring. So they have not discussed that yet, so I don't want to speak on that for them.
Okay.
And then the other two are just amended job descriptions for the clerk's office, I believe it was. Swapping some of duties from one position to another. So there was no pay change. It was just changing job descriptions.
Yeah, it didn't have to go back into WIS for anything, but as Jennifer is on vacation, I got with her back in June the 4th of 2019, we signed an ordinance 2019-07 says even though there's no salary changes on the request, the council still has to okay it. So that, like I said, there's no money difference, but we just have to okay the change.
Is that the payroll person?
So that's for the 2 amended clerk job
Oh,
descriptions.
okay.
And I think what she's doing is just covering what they do now to what her job description said, but it didn't change their rank, you want to say ranking or their pay scale. It didn't change any of that.
So what are you asking for exactly?
So we need a motion that, for the auditor to have 2 payroll deputies instead of 1, because it will be, it'll go from 45,000 to 46,800 on payroll. And then she's got somebody to cover when one goes on vacation, somebody is still there and can step in and keep the payroll moving.
How is that done now?
I would say that the deputy 2 is probably 80% knowledge. And this will just kind of do the final bump to be able to answer questions, to be able to process a payroll. There's certain things that fall under one job description, but not the other. So I just want to bring them up to have the exact same job description, the exact same duties. And even it out.
Have they both been here the same?
No, let's see, the deputy 2 came in December 21, I believe, and then the other one has been here 16, possibly, before me. And that's the regular payroll deputy.
So tell me what you think.
Yeah. Doug's.
Well,
I know the experience is gonna be different, but I'm
Yes.
sure the knowledge is there on both of them. And with our pay scale, if that's their job description now, that's where they'll have to be paid, correct?
I'm just a little concerned that the first one's got some time here over the other one that you're wanting to bring up and make even.
That's how the whole county's ran now, and that's why we have longevity.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the longevity will make up the difference, I guess. So,
There's lots of positions that are like that.
but we'll have that in every department. I mean, right? Tiffany?
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
think we
every
have people in
department's
the
gonna be
clerk's
like
office
that.
that have been here for 22 years, that make the exact same as somebody who's been here for 2 years.
Yeah.
It's
And our
the
longevity
that-
will make up the difference, or hopefully.
So $50 a year doesn't make up a lot of difference. That's probably
No, it
something that
doesn't.
we need to look at revamping at some point also, or at least take into consideration a higher stipend per year on that, if that's what we're going to use as our equalizer for people who have an extraordinary amount of years of experience in compared to other people. I think that's something we definitely need to look at.
Yes.
We could add another day to the budget, hash it out.
I'm sure.
I don't think it would take a day. I think we could probably get something done in an hour. if we
I
just
agree.
come ready to work.
In 22 years, $50 is only $1,100. I don't know how happy I would be at 22 years of service, making $1,100 more a year than somebody with.
I think that is something that WIS had stated in there.
Wouldn't
The
be
longevity should look at.
It would be 1,000 more than it.
Right.
I think we need to appreciate our employees more with that longevity, if that's what we're using as a crutch for everybody's salary being the same.
Good discussion at budget time.
So we need to make a motion on Tom's recommendations.
So my question is, you want to make a
What does
motion?
council want to do?
You want to do both of them? You want the payroll deputy, we'll have 2, and also the amended 2 clerk jobs, or you want them separate? I mean, there's no money exchanged on the second amendment, so.
I'd like to, if I could, suggest that we treat this more like we do our information gathering for our packets. Rather than being presented here at this meeting, I'd like for it to get to us sooner, or maybe let us digest that for next month's decision.
Okay, that's fine.
Because normally there's stuff for us to look into to make that decision. I'd like to just see a little bit more time for us to work on it.
So we'll just table it for a month then, Tiffany.
All of them.
There's no reason to delay the clerk one. There's no change in that. We can pass that one through.
And I don't
Whatever
necessarily
the council
want
wants
this
to do.
issue, but I mean, as a whole, I would like to I'd like to have that information distributed before being able to have, make a decision at the same meeting with it just being presented.
Then I said we say both issues. The next meeting.
I don't have a problem if we do decide on it, since we're just, this change now, doing something retroactive as far as the difference in what the pay is going to be, but I just think that it's in everybody's best interest that we all put that consideration into the.
Well, this was just how the personnel committee has always formulated, and that's was based on what the council has done. So if there's going to be a change, well, then it can be changed. The personnel committee needs to know, because we could have done this all along. And if that's going to be a motion that we're going to move forward, we need to know that because we're meeting today, and we would need to know that for our further meetings.
So I mean, this is the first time we've ever not passed it from the personnel committee. So if we're going to do, as you want to do, Thor, I'm not sure why it even comes in front of the personnel committee. It'll just bring it in front of the whole council and make that decision, because we're just wasting our time on.
Well, it's not a waste of time, it's a matter of disseminating the information, like you had a meeting, you're gonna have a meeting today. And once you guys have that meeting today, well, if that information could go out to council within 2 weeks of that meeting, so we have it 2 weeks before the next meeting when we're being asked to help make those decisions. I'm certainly not implying that it's a waste of time, I just think it's, just like we request our packets. When I first came on council, we would get our packets on Monday most of the time before a Tuesday meeting. And we changed that to a 2-week prep time for that information. And I think if you're having your meeting today, I think it's more than appropriate to be able to present your opinions or your findings to everybody on council within a 2-week period, which would still be 2 weeks before the next meeting. I understand if you're meeting a week beforehand, the difficulty that would be there, but I mean, we're a whole month ahead.
Well, while we're opening this up, let's just do this for all committees. Let's do, when you have your monthly committee meetings, have a report and it's sent out to us for each committee. Then that way we know what's happening in each committee. I think that'd be awesome. So today when we have our meeting, we always get an agenda wrap up sent to us, the 3 committee members, and it goes over what we discussed and our decisions and what we're going to present here. I think that should be done for every committee, because we don't know what you're doing in your committee. So we rely on you to present to us what's happening on whatever committees you're on. If that could be across the board, I think that would be great.
I would say I have no problem including the personnel in the packet because I'm a part of that. I would say the other committees you're on, maybe share with each other. That way I'm not trying to wait on a bunch of different emails to forward on. So I'd like to remove myself from.
Yes, that would be a lot of.
Yes, I would rather not do that.
Let's just think about that and discuss it.
Okay.
Good discussion, okay? So we'll take this up at our next meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioners report.
It's been kind of light lately. We canceled our meeting yesterday for a lack of agenda. So I really don't have anything to add.
Anything on the jail?
No changes. I think, were either of you able to attend the last meeting?
It was virtual.
It was, yeah. We had a Zoom meeting and I was late, but I did jump on for a little while. There's really nothing to do.
And still nothing with the floor. I heard that again, that
Yeah, there's no issue.
I don't
know why we're hearing that.
Wonder why.
I don't know.
So there's not one today, it's next Tuesday.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Thank you.
But you two both been there since that rumor came up about.
You know, and I was thinking about that. I wonder if it's from the discussion on doing paint the arrows before they seal it or put tape on. I wonder if that's what it is.
That would be the only thing.
Yeah.
If there's like a paint the floor before they coat it, so they don't have to purchase tape and replace tape all the time.
Good, I'm glad to hear
That would be the
that.
only thing.
Yeah, I think that's the wisest decision.
But rumors are wild. They spread like crazy. People should be informed before they speak.
Every time we walk through, they're not tearing up the floor anyway.
What's with
It's
the-
all there. Hurt one point.
That makes sense. That's the only floor issue that I ever heard come up was the tape versus seal.
Okay. Thanks, Chad. Okay, minutes of our March 5th meeting.
Motion we approve the minutes.
Got a motion from Nick,
Second.
second by Tim, that we approve March 5th, 2024 minutes. Further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, abstain. Any comments from the public? Okay. John, you have anything?
I have nothing to add.
Joan,
No.
Thor,
No, I have
Nick? Tim,
Not at this time.
Tom?
I read through your health report. Is there anything that stands out that we should know in that annual report or anything, Scott? I mean, you do an excellent job on everything, and I looked through it, but I thought, well, I'm gonna ask you if there's anything I missed or overlooked.
Overall building was down for residential starts in the county last year as well as this year. Smaller, weather probably has something to do with it. So we are starting to see a little bit of a slowing there, but it's an election year, which is a good thing that during election year, people get antsy about things. But no, I think things are running smoothly. Darcy starts full time Wednesday, tomorrow, and she'll hit the ground running. I'm making lots of connections there, so I think that we're good standing at. If you have any specific questions.
COVID or anything?
This is small uptick in March. Well, with influenza, we had a week where we had almost 200 kids out of the middle school that were sick. I monitored that with the State Department of Health, mostly a combination of respiratory stuff along with digestive issues. Kind of seeing that kind of go around right now. But no, as it warms up and summer gets here, that should slow down a little bit, but no, nothing I can see on the horizon. I haven't heard anything. They must have forgot that it was election year, that they're gonna have a pandemic, so I've not seen anything yet.
Great. Good.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have nothing. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everyone.